Hey there, how's it going? I'm Christian Sakamoto with Plan Your Federal Retirement, back with another video with our Critical Concepts series. Today, I wanted to talk about different action items to take depending on how far away from or how close you are to retirement. So I found this article online talking about if you're 10 years away, 5 years away, 3 years, or 1 year away from your federal retirement. And it really does a good job going through the list of certain things that you should be doing in preparation for that looming federal retirement, which again, I thought was very helpful. So let's just jump right in. The first list has to do if you are 10 years away from your federal retirement. So on the list, the article had said, determine your eligibility. I think this is great, right? Knowing the retirement rules, if you're going to be doing a full, immediate, unreduced pension and retirement under FERS, if you're going to do an MRA plus 10 retirement, a postponed retirement, a deferred retirement, we should know what those eligibility rules are. The next one on the list, estimating what your pension is going to be. It's a good time to start thinking about and having a good idea what that pension number is going to be. Resolving any service issues, especially if you have some military history and you're buying some of that time back, this would be a good time to start dialing that in. Assessing Social Security, great idea. Go ahead and get that Social Security estimate now. Start planning what that'll be. Create a debt payoff plan. I think that's great. Evaluating your life insurance needs. That's great. Organizing estate planning documents. Absolutely, right? We want to start, and if we haven't already, get those estate planning documents in place. At minimum, you're going to want to have a will, a healthcare directive, and a durable power of attorney, right? Those are the three main ones that you absolutely have to have. Optimizing your thrift savings plan, right? That's going to make a ton of sense. Reviewing how you're invested right now, just within the investments themselves, but also your contributions. And then lastly, it says just to discuss those retirement plans with your spouse if you're married, right? Start talking about what those plans are, making sure you're on the same page. I think this list is great. I think the only thing that I would add really in addition to this list is going back to the TSP is really pushing the gas on your retirement savings in general, right? If we're within our 10 years from retirement, this should be at a point in your career where you're starting to earn the highest dollars that you'll ever earn throughout your career, right? If we're within that 10-year time frame. So really evaluate that cash flow and see, is there any way we can be saving in addition to what we're currently saving? I like to think about it in a perspective of saving for retirement first. If you haven't maxed your TSP, right, continue to put into the TSP. If you've already maximized your contributions to the TSP, then looking outside, you can look to IRAs as well, whether that's a Roth IRA, pre-tax IRA, or maybe we're doing an after-tax IRA. You could even save in addition to retirement accounts, just in an investment account, right? We're buying ETFs, index funds, mutual funds, whatever it may be. Also, don't forget the age that you turn 50 within the TSP, you can do the catch-up contributions. So making sure you're on top of those as well, the extra $7,500 the year that you turn 50. I think if you're 10 years away, these are some really good habits to start building and being able to save the most that you can while we still have that 10-year window into retirement. So the next part of this list is if you are 5 years away from retirement. So it's really in addition to the list that we just mentioned, but this article in particular says if you're 5 years away from retirement, start doing an income review. So reassess your expected income sources, whether that's pension, Social Security, and TSP. I couldn't agree more. And I really think this is the time to plan out what your pension is going to be. And you're within 5 years away, so we should really get pretty close on what we think that number is going to be, at least from a gross perspective. Then, of course, we have to think about it now from a net perspective as well, after any survivor benefits, after taxes, maybe state taxes, after our health insurance, and any other insurance benefits that might come out of that as well. So we have to think not only just from the gross pension number, but try to think about it from what's the net pension going to be as well. Next on the list, if we're 5 years from retirement, this article says we should confirm our FEHB eligibility. Absolutely agree, right? Part of the rules with keeping your FEHB into retirement is we have to retire with the eligibility of an immediate retirement, MRA with 30, age 60 with 20 years of service, or age 62 with 5 years of service, or we could choose an MRA plus 10 retirement, right? All of those are eligible for an immediate retirement. But the second rule is we have to be in FEHB for the last 5 years prior to separating from service. So if we're within 5 years, we're not in FEHB, then this would be the time to confirm that, of course. If you're in TRICARE, that counts towards your eligibility for keeping FEHB into retirement, just as an exception there. The one thing I'd add if you're 5 years from retirement is to get your certified summary of federal service and request this from your local HR. We've mentioned this before. HR isn't super excited to put these together because oftentimes it's a lot of work. I've seen them really just turn it down altogether. I've seen them come back and, they say, well, this is really something that's more for when we're retiring. And it really is. But actually on the form, it says that we can respond to an employee's request for credible service. And we can go back and push back a little bit saying, this is a very important document that we want to see to get a record of our credible service. And it's the only official document that gets put together to verify what your credible service history is. So it's really a good idea if we're 5 years away from retirement to request this. Okay, so the next category would be if you are 3 years away from your federal retirement. This article further suggests that we should be starting to test our retirement plans, experimenting with retirement lifestyles, locations, making sure that they're matching our expectation. I think this is a good plan, especially if we're not quite sure. This is a good time to start honing in on those certain topics, like where we'll be living, if we're going to have any changes there, if we're going to plan any part-time income, and if we're not done completely working, but we want to go work somewhere else, or maybe full-time income, just want to leave federal service and go work somewhere else in the private space, but also thinking about how you'll be spending your time as well. What are some of those hobbies that you enjoy doing? Starting to budget for those. If you're married and your entire career you've been working and separated from your spouse during your working hours, and all of a sudden now you're both at home spending a lot more time together, thinking about some fun things to be doing with your spouse. Some of those things are really important that we should be planning ahead instead of just waiting until the day that we retire to really not have anything on the to-do list or on the agenda list. It's really good to start thinking about that now. The other thing I'd add, if you're 3 years away from retirement, is you really want to start building out what that retirement income timeline is going to look like. So when you retire, your wages right now are funding your cash flow needs, but we want to understand between your pension, between Social Security, and between TSP and other retirement accounts, what your income source need is. What is that net monthly number? And then how are we going to fill that up with those various income sources? Again, we call that the retirement timeline, and we really build that out over the next 10 years to say, where is that exactly going to come? Because in some years, you might have an income source like the pension and maybe the first supplement. And then maybe in the future, the first supplement goes away. So now we're down some income. So we have to take out more from another account. Maybe we choose to delay that Social Security. So we're taking out even more. So we really want to build out and start to build out that retirement income timeline if you're 3 years away from retirement. The other thing this article mentions if you're 3 years away is planning for health insurance, right? So not only your FEHB strategy, but what is your Medicare strategy? Oftentimes we're recommending to clients, at least with starting your Medicare Part A, but also starting your Medicare Part B as well, and planning that into cash flow is going to be important. The last set of action items would be if you are 1 year away from your federal retirement. This article suggests preparing for that retirement application, right? The form itself isn't super complicated, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to familiarize yourself with it and understand the questions that are being asked so that you can prepare how to fill it out correctly. Next on the list, coordinating with Social Security so that you have a plan, again, with when you're going to turn on that Social Security benefit. So having not only those up-to-date Social Security estimate numbers, of course, but planning when you're deciding to turn on that Social Security benefit, if you're going to be retiring over the age of 62, or if you're going to retire sooner than that and you might have that first supplement, when you're going to turn on that Social Security, either between 62 or 70. Next thing they mentioned is just understanding the TSP rules. So you absolutely want to understand how those TSP rules work when it comes to distributions, whether we're taking a lump sum distributions or we're doing a reoccurring distribution from the TSP itself. Also knowing some of the downsides with the TSP with those proportionate distribution rules, right? I think that's really, really going to be important. Next thing would be updating estate planning documents if we're 1 year away from retirement. I really agree. Hey, this is a good time reevaluating those needs, especially if you have those documents in place for a while. dust them off, take a peek at them, see who's on them, see who's those personal representatives are, who's those powers of attorney are, not only who's first in line, but who's kind of that successor as well. It's always a good idea to be evaluating that, especially after or right before a big life event like retirement. Last thing this article mentioned is planning your leave usage. So if you've got some sick leave, how that could be incorporated possibly into your retirement, but also the annual leave, and possibly planning your retirement date based on that annual leave and how those rules work. I agree. So I think this article did a good job for the 1 year away from retirement. Couple of things I would add to the 1 year away from retirement list would be to download everything that you have inside of your EOPF, your electronic official personnel file. As you know, when you retire, you're no longer going to have access to it anymore. So if there is ever a need to go back to see what those documents were after you've already separated from service, you're going to want to make sure that you've saved that to a personal computer. And those SF50s are really the most important piece to your EOPF, I would say, maybe in addition to a buyback letter from buying back military time or those kinds of things. But those SF50s really prove if you are paying into FERS or not. And so that's really important for verifying your work history, of course. The other thing I would say when it comes to if you're 1 year away from your retirement is really to fine tune that retirement income timeline. So if you're 3 years away, we're starting to build that out. Even 5 years away, starting to plan what your income sources are. 3 years away, you're really going to want to build that timeline. But then if you're 1 year away, this is when you fine tune it, right? Knowing what your cash flow needs are. Those are really going to need to be dialed in. What's that net monthly number? And then where are those sources of income coming from? Updating the Social Security estimates and all those good things, all the pension estimates as well. So I think this is a good time. If you don't feel comfortable doing that yourself, hire us, right? Go find somebody who knows these benefits, how it relates to FERS to do it for you. But we just need to make sure that you have that timeline built out so you feel comfortable going into your retirement, right? So hopefully you found this video helpful as we dived into some of these critical concepts relating to your retirement with FERS, especially if you're fitting in one of those boxes of being 10 years away or 5 years away, 3 years or 1 year away. Some helpful tips here to be thinking about. So if you have questions related to this, feel free to leave your question below in the comment section. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel as well so you get our latest videos that we put out. And of course, until next time, happy planning.